All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started in the interest of time. I think people can sign on as they need to. I don't need to let anybody or let anybody in. So good morning and welcome to the Folkshow Model Virtual Seder. My name is Leah, and for those of you who don't know, I am the 8th, 9th grade teacher and also the program manager here at Folkshow. This morning is brought to us by some of our very hardworking assistants, Liam, Ruby, Alex, Miller, and Mara. You are entering this community space with your microphones on mute. This is done to ensure that background noise does not disrupt our Seder, so please do not unmute yourself unless requested. We appreciate your help with this. As you practice muting and unmuting, please feel free to show us your table and who's joining us, and also go ahead and peel your orange if you haven't done so already. We are recording this and we will be making it available to you during Passover. So,
peel an orange?
As well as on our Folkshow's website. So if we could all unmute and sing together with Art, Hine Matov.
Hine Matov.
Hine Matov Manai Shevet Gumya.
Mute because there's everybody else.
Doing a whole
Done. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yesterday was a special Shabbat before Passover called the Shabbat Hagadol, literally the big Shabbat. The first Shabbat Hagadol was believed to have taken place in Egypt on the 10th of Nisan, 5 days before the Israelite Exodus, as it is this year. Passover is one of the most significant Jewish holidays celebrated by the Jewish people all around the world. Why, might you wonder, is it so very important? It is the combination of the past, the present, and the future in its simplest description. It is a time when the Jewish people globally remember the past and the collective history we share, a time of trepidation, danger, risk, and the possible extinction of our people, with freedom as our outcome then. We retell the story with our family, our friends, and the Folkshow community, to those who make our lives safe, to help us feel less afraid. Finally, we hope and we make plans for a better year ahead and for a better world together for us and everyone. Welcome to the very first Zoom Folkshow Model Seder. We could have given up due to COVID-19. We could have decided not to hold a community Seder. Nobody would have thought that wasn't reasonable. Not to have classes. Nobody would have thought that's unexpected. Not to volunteer to bring foods to our neighbors in need. Yet we are. Not to study for your bar and bat mitzvah. I hear that you are. Not to do your homework for school. I know that you are. We could give up and put our heads in the sand to protect us from COVID-19. But wait, that's not who we are. That's not who the Jewish people are, or who the folkshoal board is, the leadership, the teachers, the adults, and the families. We are a passionate group of people who adapt, innovate, and grow. This Passover, we're asking you to have bitachon. Can you say that with me? Bitachon. In your own space, yes. Bitachon is trust. It's not just trust in others. It's trust in knowledge. It's trust in yourself and your own behavior to be wise. And trust in your families to be wise. To keep going, to wash hands, to do extra hard work and caring for everybody in our community. By doing so, we are collectively retelling the experience of Passover. One of a people who banded together in the face of adversity and the unknown with a positive outcome. Before we begin the Seder, I would like you to think about those people who cannot be with you today because of COVID-19, who won't be with you on Wednesday and Thursday night for your Seder. Who do you want to wish a Zisun Pesach to, a sweet Passover to? I'm going to pause in a minute, but I'll tell you who I want to send a Zisun Pesach to, and that's Mindy Blatt. Thank you, Mindy. How she supports our community and is always willing to help, more than help, to step in, to lead, to support. I think how grateful I am to have her as part of my community. I'm going to send Mindy a handwritten note expressing my gratitude for her after we meet today. Take a minute now and think of those people who are not able to attend your Seder, who are not here, who you cannot see in person. Hold them in your thoughts, and then talk to your family around you and tell each other who you miss, who you will miss. And then most importantly, what will you do? We are a people of doers. How will you reach out to those people after your Seder today, after your Seder on Wednesday or Thursday, and check in with them and wish them a Zisun Passover, a sweet Passover? Tell your parents, parents tell your children, what are you doing? And why? And with whom?
Mom and Papa. Who do you miss? I'm not really great now on that. But that was a nice sentiment. I like that.
That's you, Mindy. I see you.
Oh, here. Thank you, Beth.
Hi, I'm Ruby, the 2nd, 3rd, and 9th grade assistant. And Passover is a time to celebrate for many reasons. As spring approaches, we celebrate the season of new growth and new life in the world around us. As human beings, we grow to achieve new skills, new knowledge, and new goals. As a Jewish community, We grow as we find new ways of looking at our traditional stories that give us insight and understanding of the human experience. Passover is a celebration of freedom, freedom of the Jews from enslavement in Egypt. The traditional Jewish Seder says, every person in every generation must regard him or herself or themselves as having been personally freed from bondage in Egypt. We must remember the past to understand today and to protect our tomorrows. Or, in each generation, in each year, we retell the story to our children and to our grandchildren that we were slaves in Egypt. This spirit of freedom and rebellion against brutal slavery has inspired men and women throughout history. Let us therefore celebrate our freedom and strengthen ourselves to join the fight against injustice wherever it exists today. So can everyone fill up their glass?
I pour your wine for you.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mom. Traditionally, the Jews drink 4 glasses of wine or grape juice during the Seder to symbolize the joy of life and the fruits of our labor. Let us drink the first cup of wine to growth and change. We remember that just as plants emerge from the frozen ground, the spirit of freedom inspires oppressed people to fight for their liberation.
So nice.
Let us drink to all people who still struggle for freedom until all are free, none are free. Drink.
Hello, my name is Liam Forrest. I'm a community assistant at Folkshul, and I will be presenting the symbols of Passover. We sit at this Passover table as a family. On our tables, you will see the foods and symbols of the season. On Passover, we invite all who are hungry to come and share our Passover feast. Let us remember that even in our own city, there are thousands of people living with hunger. Let us continue to strive for the day when there will no longer be unanswered need. These are the symbols of Passover. Matzah. Matzah is the unleavened bread, also known as the bread of affliction. It symbolizes the hasty flight the Israelites made when they left Egypt. The Passover story tells us that when the Jews were fleeing Egypt, they had no time to wait for their bread to rise, so they baked it unleavened. On your table, there is a plate with 3 matzahs. Break the middle matzah into 2 halves. Wrap one half and set it aside. This is the afikomen. Afikomen. The afikomen is the middle matzah of the 3 matzahs at the Seder. In keeping with our tradition, parents will hide the afikomen, and later the children will go on a treasure hunt to find it. Then they will bring it back, and we'll buy it back from them, so we can complete the Seder. Maror. Maror is the Hebrew word for bitter herbs, which symbolizes the bitterness of slavery. Please join us in your homes in eating some bitter herbs on matzah. Yep, bitter. Okay. Haroset. Okay. Yeah, it hit. Haroset. This sweet mixture of chopped fruits, nuts, and spices and wine is a reminder of the clay that our ancestors used in making the bricks for the building of the cities and structures for the Egyptian pharaohs. Please join us in eating a sandwich of haroset on matzah. Okay. Shank bone. In ancient times, a shepherd's festival, known as Pesach, was celebrated in the spring, and each family slaughtered a lamb for the meal. The Pesach lamb is represented today by the roasted bone, zoroa. The Passover story also tells us that the Jews smeared lamb's blood on the doorposts of their homes so the angel of death would pass over them and not slay their firstborn. From this comes the name of the holiday, Passover. Egg. Since ancient times, the egg symbolized the rebirth of the earth in the spring and in the end of winter. Carpus. Carpus. Parsley and other green vegetables also remind us of spring. a time when the earth awakens and brings forth its fruits. We recall our ancestors who were farmers and remember that it is the earth and people's labor that feeds us. Salt water. We dip the parsley in the salt water to remind us that we often must first taste the unhappiness of oppression before we can enjoy the refreshing taste of liberation. Our folklore Seder table welcomes new traditions among the old. As with every part of our Seder, you are invited to embrace them or not. Orange. Susanna Heschel, a feminist Jewish scholar, placed an orange on her Seder plate as a gesture of solidarity with Jewish lesbians, gays, and others who are marginalized within the Jewish community. We include this non-traditional item on the Seder plate to represent the fruitfulness of welcoming everyone into our community. It also reminds us that while we honor the traditions of our culture, we also make our own traditions. Olive. The olive on our plate represents an olive branch, a traditional symbol of peace. Also, the olive reminds us that for the Palestinian people, olive groves have for centuries provided sustenance. Peace between Israel and Palestine is a necessary part of any future that includes the taste of freedom for both people. Soap. The folklore community decided to add soap to the Seder plate this year in honor of the hardworking people who are protecting us and our families during this time, and to honor our own commitment to being hygienic, which not only protects ourselves and our families, but the whole world. Please do not eat the soap. Miriam's cup. On our table, we find a cup filled with water in honor of Miriam, the sister of Moses, who found water for the escaping Israelites throughout her sojourn in the desert. Miriam has become a symbol of the strength and struggles of women throughout the world.
Okay, hi, I'm Miller. I'll be doing the 4 questions. I'm the 2nd and 3rd grade assistant. The Seder is a tradition that is carried from one generation to the next. Through it, our children learn the value of freedom. They learn that Seder centers on children and the questions they asked. Questioning is a sign of freedom, the freedom to explore and discover in asking questions. Each person finds their own meaning in the Passover Seder.
Did I get it this time?
Yeah, you got it this time. Nice job.
Why is this night different from all other nights?
On all other nights, we eat either bread or matzah. Why on this night do we only eat matzah?
We eat this flat, unleavened bread called matzah to remind us that people often have to leave in haste when fleeing to freedom.
On all other nights, we eat all kinds of vegetables. Why on this night must we eat bitter herbs?
The mar, bitter herbs, is eaten to remind us of the bitterness of slavery and the sorrow in the lives of our ancestors and those of oppressed people everywhere.
On all other nights, we do not usually dip vegetables even once. Why on this night do we do so twice?
We dip twice during the Seder to symbolize two things. The greens in the salt water symbolize, The greens in the salt water symbolize the sorrow and tears of slavery. The bitter maror dipped in the sweet haroset symbolizes hope. Our ancestors were able to withstand the bitterness of oppression because it was sweetened by the hope of freedom.
On all other nights, we eat either sitting up or reclining. Why on this night do we eat reclining?
In the ancient days, slaves ate hurriedly because their masters did not permit them to waste a single moment when they could be working. So the slaves ate either standing up or squatting on the ground. The masters, however, ate leisurely as they reclined on couches. Since our ancestors marked the freedom by this festival, it is natural that we should also eat in the manner of free people.
Alrighty. Could someone just give me a quick thumbs up if this is working? All right. So I'm Alex. I'm the 7th grade assistant. I'm telling the story of Passover. Once, long ago, the pharaohs ruled Egypt. One pharaoh feared that the national groups within his borders would collaborate with his enemies. He enslaved them, and they were forced to work building cities. Such was the fate of the Jews. To further reduce the Jewish people's numbers, the pharaoh ordered the midwives who attended at Jewish births to kill any male babies. But the midwives did not obey and lied to the pharaoh, saying that the Jewish woman gave birth very quickly before the midwives could arrive. So the pharaoh ordered that Jewish parents were to drown their male babies. The horrified parents hid their sons. One woman, Yocheved, put her baby son in a basket and placed the basket in the Nile River. The pharaoh's daughter found him and decided to raise him as her own, naming him Moses. Not knowing Yocheved was his mother, she hired her to nurse the baby. Moses, brought up as an Egyptian prince, was a man of conscience. One day he saw a slave being brutally whipped. Enraged, he struck the overseer, accidentally killing him. He then fled Egypt and lived as a shepherd. After years in the desert, he realized he had to return to Egypt to free his people. Moses went to the pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." Many centuries after the legendary time of Moses, African people were brought to America as slaves. These slaves longed for freedom, and they were inspired by the story of Moses and the ancient Israelites. When the slaves in America sang the spiritual "Go Down Moses," they were thinking of their own leaders who were working to end slavery.
Got it this time.
Let my people go. When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus say the Lord, oh Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
All right. As the story continues, when the pharaoh refused, Moses threatened to call down plagues on the Egyptians. The pharaoh agreed to free the people, but he broke his promise. Then many plagues began. Frogs and locusts swarmed over the land, and boils and lice covered the skin of the Egyptians. Again, the pharaoh promised freedom, and again he broke his promise. Then the firstborn sons of the Egyptians died, even the son of the pharaoh himself. Because of these plagues, the pharaoh finally agreed to free the Jews. But as soon as the Jews left Egypt, the pharaoh sent his army after them. The Jews were stopped by the Red Sea, and with the Pharaoh's army right behind them, Moses raised his staff, and the waters seemed to spread apart, letting the Jews go through and then crashing back on the Egyptian army, drowning them. It is said the waters did not divide until one man, Nachsan, walked into the sea. In doing this, he acted as a free man, ready to take the ultimate risk for his freedom, and thus became a free man.
Hi, I'm Mara. I'm a community assistant, and I'll do the 10 plagues. Although the plagues successfully forced the Egyptians to let the Israelites go, we do not rejoice in the suffering of others. On the contrary, we diminish the joy of our celebration by spilling a drop of wine from our cups as we recite each plague. Blood,
Blood,
frogs,
frogs,
insects,
insects,
wild beasts,
cattle
disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, slaying of the firstborn. While we celebrate our freedom from ancient bondage, we invite you to pour out drops of wine to recognize the 10 modern plagues now afflicting people worldwide in our own communities. War, hunger, homelessness, disease, poverty, injustice, tyranny, greed, ignorance, indifference. The latest manifestation of a modern plague is COVID-19, and we acknowledge that it is this plague that has allowed us to reimagine community and strengthen our communities to each other.
Everyone, please join us. In the face of these modern day plagues, we reaffirm our commitment
into the struggle
to social justice.
The Freedom Song. Freedom doesn't come like a bird on a wing. Freedom doesn't come like a summer rain. You gotta work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. Every generation's got to win it again. Pass it on to your brothers and your sisters. Pass it on. Freedom doesn't come like a bird on a wing. Freedom doesn't come like a summer rain. You got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it, and every generation's got to win it again. Pass it on to your brothers and your sisters. Pass it on one more time. Freedom doesn't come like a bird on a wing. Freedom doesn't come like a summer rain. You gotta work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. Every generation's got to win it again. Pass it on to your brothers and your sisters. Pass it on.
Hi, I'm Ruby. Again, if you didn't hear me before, I'm the second and third grade assistant. And ninth. And the classic Passover song, Dayenu, meaning it would have been enough, offers gratitude for our redemption from slavery and many other pivotal developments in our tradition. But we must not let gratitude lead to complacency. It is not enough. Lo Dayenu, for us to be thankful for our own good fortune when others in the world, in our country, and in our neighborhoods suffer from injustice and inequality. Until children grow up in freedom without hunger and with the love and support they need to realize their full potential. Please join me in saying, Lo Dayenu.
Lo Dayenu.
Until food and shelter are accepted as human rights and are available to all, and no one must fear hunger, cold, or loneliness. Please join me in saying, Lo Dayenu. Until all the workers of the world are valued and respected for their labor and enjoy safe, healthy, and secure working conditions and can take pride in their work.
Lo Dayenu.
Lo Dayenu.
I'm busy.
Until the threat to millions facing death from war, famine, preventable disease, and human-made disasters end. Lo
Dayenu.
Until conflicts will be settled at the peace table in concord or before the courts of people and not on the fields of battle. Lo Dayenu.
Lo Dayenu.
Until the words Holocaust and genocide are never used Again, anywhere in the world in the present tense.
Lo Dayenu.
Let us vow that next year at this time, each of us will be able to say, this year I worked as hard as I could towards Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, so that one day all people can experience the joy and freedom we feel sitting with our family friends at our virtual Seder table. We have added Dayenu to our usual Lo Dayenu to acknowledge that we are thankful for our ancestors who escaped slavery in Egypt while still recognizing that there are things in the world we need to work towards fixing.
Dayenu with Lo Dayenu. Ilu Hotzianu, Hotzianu, me Mitzrayim, Hotzianu, Dayenu, Lo Dayenu, Lo Dayenu, Lo Dayenu, 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 Lo Dayenu, Lo Dayenu, Lo Dayenu, Dayenu. Volkein Pesach nit gabes, Volkein Seder nit gabes, over matzah Volkabes, Daenu, 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 Lo Daenu, Daenu, Daenu. Volkein Seder nit gabes,
Oh, I'm on mute.
Volkein Pesach nit gabes, Volkein Moshe nit gabes, over Friday Volkabes, Daenu, last time, Daenu, Lo Daenu, Lo Daenu, 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 Lo Daenu, Lo Daenu, Lo Daenu, Daenu, Daenu.
So Beth asked us to address the Dayenu, Lo Dayenu, and it actually came from one of my students, AJ. I don't know if he's here right now, but he said, you know, yeah, there's all this stuff that isn't sufficient, but we also need to acknowledge things that have been sufficient to put us where we are. So Art was gracious enough to incorporate his suggestion into Dayenu. So now it's Dayenu, Lo Dayenu going forward, I think.
Hello, I will be opening the door for Elijah. During the Seder, we open the door for Elijah the prophet, and we place a cup of wine on the table, especially for them. Jewish tradition says that Elijah will announce the day of complete human freedom, when every human being on earth can truly sing the song of liberation. But they will come only when we have prepared the way for them, when we have made a world where nation will not lift up sword against nation, and we will learn violence and war no more. When we have rid the world of poverty, hunger, and disease, when we have learned to work together in justice, we pour a cup of wine for them and open the door for them, but with our work, Elijah will not come. Go open the door. Oh, it's okay.
Elianu, Eliyahu, Atishbi, Eliyahu, 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 Hakilani, Eliyahu, 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 Hakilani. Bimera, Biyamenu, Yavo Eleinu, Yavo Eleinu, Bimera, Biyamenu, Eliyahu, Anabi, Eliyahu, Atishbi, Eliyahu, 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 Hakilani. Eliyahu, 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 Adiladi.
Let us drink the second cup of wine to express our hopes for a better tomorrow.
During this festival of life, let us remember our lost sisters and brothers, the millions of Jews enslaved and killed in the Holocaust. Everyone, please join us in saying,
We remember them.
remember them along with all the others who suffered. Many ethnic, religious, and sexual minorities, progressive activists, resistance fighters, and people with disabilities shared their fate. Their anguish and death is with us, even in our times of celebration. We resolve that their memory shall not be lost. We remember the heroism of the men, women, and children who fought against fascism and tyranny in the forests and cities of Egypt. Everyone, please join me. We remember the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising on the dawn of the first day of Passover, April 19, 1943. A few hundred poorly armed Jews decided to resist the tremendous power of the German army and the Gestapo. The courageous people of the Jewish Fighting Organization held out for 42 days. Although few of the Jewish fighters survived the battle, the story of their courage will never die. Similar acts of resistance took place in Minsk, Vilna, Bialystok, in the towns and cities of Poland, and even in Treblinka, Sobibor, and Auschwitz. Let us raise our glasses to those who were taken from us and to those who fought for freedom and life.
Sonnenking was de gisteren was today. Vergossing en wijnen, verstelling bloeite. Om het nog een zo is geweten schon. Zet ooit onze trocken hier zijn nog. Om het nog een zo is geweten schon. Zet ooit onze trocken hier zijn nog. Never say the skies may be blue, cause the hour that we
near. The earth shall tremble, we are here.
the hour that we've hungered for is near.
The tread
The earth shall tremble, we are here. From lands of palm trees to far off lands of snow, we shall be coming here. And everywhere our brothers
to the earth.
shall our bravery
They have blossomed.
everywhere our bodies sunk into the earth. Shall our bravery and our vigor blossom forth? This song was written with our blood, not with lead. It's not a song that birds are singing overhead. It was a people toppling barricades.
Pistols and grenades.
It was the people among toppling barricades that sang this song of ours of pistols and grenades. So never say that there is only death for you. Though in the skies may be concealing days of blue. The hour
We have hungered for is near. Beneath our tread, the earth shall tremble. We are here.
the hour that we have hungered for is near. Beneath our tread, the earth shall tremble. We are here.
We remember the heroism of the adults and children who fought to stop the curse of fascism from engulfing the earth. Let us
drink the third cup of wine to their memory. In their name, we will be vigilant in the cause of peace and freedom in our land and throughout the world. Please join me in saying, from slavery to freedom, we are grateful to be together as a family and to drink
From the fruit of the vine. L'chaim.
Bashana Ba'a Neshev Hamir Peset Benispor Sikorim Nadedo Yeladim Husha Sachatu to Peset Ben Ba Elaben Asado Untire Untire Amato Ye Bashana Bashana Aba'a Untire Bashana Abba. Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day dark new clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be. If we care, if we share, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be. If we care, if we share, you and me. Dreams many have died to make a bright tomorrow. Their visions remain in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed, hope and not in sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Utile, kamato yetiye, mashana, mashana, abaha. Utile, kamato yetiye, mashana, abaha, abaha.
It's almost over.
There we go. We drink the fourth cup of wine to our children, to all children.
Adults, please rise for a toast and promise to the children. Children remain seated. May you live and be well. May your days be happy and productive. May you be part of the never-ending cycle of life, love, and the search for a better tomorrow. Please drink the fourth cup of wine.
You'll now enjoy the holiday meal like everyone's made, and if they have it or not. Shortly, all the children will go on a treasure hunt to find the Afikomen. When they return, we'll buy back the Afikomen so we can complete the Seder. At the end of your meal, please share a piece of matzah from your table as a symbol of the Afikomen and the end of the Seder.
Thank you guys so much for being here with us to celebrate as a community. Thank you for bearing with the technological foibles. We hope this held meaning for you, and we are so happy that we could all be together. Parents, please do not forget about the Afikomen and hide it for your child or children to find. You'll eat as a family, and please use the conclusion section after you eat, but we're not going to be on Zoom for that part. Thank you again. Lomer ala Essen, B'tai Avon. Let's eat Chag Sameach, everyone.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Bye. Love you all.
Love you all.
Guys,
have a great Passover.
Yeah. All right, I'm kicking y'all off.
Happy wave goodbye. Wave goodbye.
Ending it. Okay, bye, guys. Thank you.